Hello, welcome to Enterprising People, the podcast from fabulous Las Vegas. I'm so happy that you're joining us today. We have a wonderful, wonderful author to talk to about his fabulous book. But before we get to that, we have to give a shout out to silverstatesmiles.com. And I want you to just, go online, 9 different locations right here in Las Vegas. Even if you're visiting Las Vegas, you can make an appointment and get right in if you have a little mishap here while you're having fun in fabulous Las Vegas. Now, without any further ado, I want to talk a little bit about the author and his wonderful book. But also, if you enjoy today's show, I want you to go and click right down there on subscribe. It's free. Subscribe to Enterprising People 702. Now, the book is called Safe Danger, and our wonderful author is Ben Swire. He has written a fabulous book, Safe Danger. I know it sounds, how can I be safe and still have danger? But we're going to talk all about it. But an unexpected method for sparking connection, finding purpose, and inspiring innovation. And in Safe Danger, an unexpected method for sparking connection, finding purpose, and inspiring innovation, award-winning designer, IDEO, veteran, and workplace culture expert Ben Swire shows how to reframe risk in a healthy way that can yield more innovative workplace, greater achievement, and surprising breakthroughs, using creativity and play to practice the risks that help achieve personal and professional goals. Swire offers a powerful path to genuine connection, psychological safety, and lasting culture change at work. So, Ben, welcome to Enterprising People. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. And I know that title is a mouthful. You can just say Safe Danger and save
your... Save that energy, I know. I'm so excited to talk to you because this book is recently released, and a lot of people are not feeling very safe right now. Did you have anything to do? Let's name the book Safe Danger because of our environment, our political environment.
It's just kismet. It happened to fall in a time when I think these are two of the buzzwords that we really need to contend with and think through a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's some might say, well, they're not synonymous. Safe and danger, they're not the same thing. And how are you describing that?
Well, I think most people do tend to think of safety and danger as opposites. But as I said this morning on your radio show, I've just found it more useful to think of them like dance partners in the way that safety gives us solid footing, but danger gives us the movement. It gives us the motion. And so safe danger, the way I use it, is sort of the emotional sweet spot between the two, where people have enough safety to leave safety behind, but enough stretch to step outside of their comfort zones and be glad that they did. So that's sort of where I'm coming from. It's a balance of the two without rejecting either.
Yeah, because so many people right now that I talk to that want to start a business or even in the workplace, they feel the restrictions that they should be working within this box that has been developed or within the culture of that business or of that workplace. So they have to operate like everybody else. But your book is saying, no, be your authentic self. Now, if we're our authentic self, how are we truly monetizing that?
Well, I really think that's where the unique value that we have to offer can come from. If we really take stock of our own journeys, of where we've come from. I think one of the things that stood out to me the strongest during, my own career is that the sort of dents and dings of our life that we often are taught to pave over or hide or keep to ourselves can often point us directly to the thing where we have the most contribution to offer, where we have the biggest insights, where we can offer the biggest breakthroughs. So being our authentic selves and taking stock of not just who we would like to be, but also where we've been, where we've come from, what we've survived and what we've learned during that, that's what we can really add to the world.
Yeah. And also in business and at a workplace environment, your experiences can be utilized as fuel to enhance the company.
Absolutely. I mean, and certainly in the workplace, that's what the whole book is about. It's about how to step into the voice that you may have kept stifled all this time and find it for yourself. I know the book is to a great degree based on my own experiences working at IDEO, which is a magical design firm that I found after working a decade in corporate finance. So that was very much going from Kansas into Oz, sort of a technicolor, emotional place. But it showed me that it's possible to do world-class work, make a real impact on your industry, and really capture people's attention by being yourself, by not trying to be what everybody else has done, by being honest and straightforward and drawing from your own insights. And, the work that I do now, I've just finished a book, but I also have a team building company, which is, absolutely not the path that I saw set out for me. This is to some degree God's joke on me because I am a very shy introvert, cynic. And so I've always hated team building activities. I've always found them to be useless and frustrating. And so the work that I do now came about because I've seen the impact that it can have on leaders, on teams, on entrepreneurs when they are able to really connect both with each other, with themselves, and embrace a big piece of themselves that they, we start being taught to hide in middle school and on out. And recovering that, I think, is an incredibly valuable thing for anybody starting a business, running a business, on a team, or making a living.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people believe that the human connection is lost because of technology, because of a lot of things that are kind of interplayed right now in our society. But the human connection is something that I think we learn at a very young age, even on the playground, that we play with each other. We have more fun with each other versus playing alone in the sandbox by myself. But counter to that, we know that DEI and those kind of things have taken place within corporations that kind of say, no, if you're a little, we're not hiring you just because you're different. Is psychologically, is there still a grace there for people that think differently?
I hope so. I think the ability to think differently and to find a place that is going to welcome that is an essential piece of feeling like you're living your purpose, whether that means running a place or on a team or whatever. I think, as you said, we learn early on how valuable it is to connect with other people and how rewarding it can be to play with other people and all that. At the same time, we learn at that same time how to protect ourselves. And we shut a lot of people out because we're afraid of being hurt or being made fun of or being teased. And so that compulsion towards conformity and that pressure not to stand out is something that I think we all struggle with in different ways. And I think it's a huge, huge loss to our culture, to us personally, to everything. And so, I do feel like having a place that understands that thinking differently, that having a unique perspective, a unique experience, and bringing it together with others makes all the difference in feeling like you're doing good work. I think a lot of companies right now confuse comfort with safety. And they assume that if people look happy, if they're just agreeing, if nobody is rocking the boat, then the culture is safe. And certainly that's better than a place than, the atmospheres that we had a few decades ago where there was hostility everywhere. And but at the same time, comfort is not the same as safety. I think comfort is about making everybody, making it easy for everyone to fit in. But real safety, I really believe, is when you feel comfortable enough to stand out and you're still going to belong. It means you can speak up, you can disagree, you can ask hard questions, and you're not going to face backlash. You're not going to face, it's not going to cost you your promotion. And I think that's a key piece of what makes work life valuable.
Right. And I think what's really exciting, and through all your research, is that big corporations are recognizing this. And that's the exciting news, because if we're thinking, oh, no, they want to put us back in this little box. They want to just take away my freedoms. I won't speak up in the board meeting anymore, those kind of things. But big corporations are seeing how this is affecting their bottom line.
The smart ones are. I think there's a lot of inertia in corporate life, and it's very hard for people to break out of their own patterns and believe that a different way is possible than the one that they came up in. I think that's a really hard thing. That's why we're seeing people, even though we've seen that you can work remotely just as successfully as working from the office, there's a huge push to bring people back into the office now, because leaders are used to overseeing people and intimidating them and making sure they're checking on people. And that's hard to let go of.
Yes.
But yes, corporations, I think the smart ones are seeing that psychological safety, that qualities that typically have been dismissed as sort of soft skills and nice to haves are actually the things that fuel what they really count, the bottom line, the numbers. Google did this thing called Project Aristotle. They spent 2 years digging into what makes the best teams so good, what makes the most productive teams, the ones that make the fewest mistakes, that have the biggest impact on their organizations and their industry. And the red thread that ran throughout it was not hard skills. It wasn't about education or experience. It wasn't about ambition or determination. It was psychological safety. These were people and teams that felt comfortable bringing their full selves to the work, and as a result, the work flourished.
Yeah, it sounds like a good marriage. I think that because you have to feel comfortable, you have to feel, and when you feel that comfort, then you do get that sense of safety. But it allows your mind, because you could have your best thoughts ever by just taking a long walk. You could get, and that kind of, when you're just walking, you think, oh, wow, that idea, this idea, that idea. So you're free to walk out in nature, and then the mind starts working. And I think, and corporations are recognizing that, because you can't find good people anymore. People are looking for evergreen employees. You always hear that they can't find people that want to work anymore. And after COVID, we were in our house. We were working from home, so the laptops and everything, because we weren't going back to the office, so to speak. So now that we're allowed to come back into the office, even as you say, there's a different vibe. I could put on my jacket from here, but down I'm wearing my pajamas. So now I'm fully clothed. I'm back in the office, and hopefully I could still be my authentic self, finding that same creativity. Now, when people were working from home, I'm just interested in knowing, through your research, when people were back at home because of COVID, working versus in the workplace, were they less or more productive for the corporations?
The research has shown that there was not a dip in productivity. There was a moment, there was the disruption of, well, how do we do this?
Yes.
But very quickly, once they figured it out, people were able to get the work done. The flexibility allowed them to pick up their kids, to have dinner together, to do that, and then finish it. The research shows that people can flourish. They can do it and still accomplish it. What you can't do is look over their shoulder and monitor them. And for leaders that are used to that, or that are, there's one of the things that stood out to me the most when I left the corporate world and went to IDEO was the difference in how trust manifested and the impact it had on people. I was a writer in financial marketing, and at one point I counted the number of eyes and fingerprints that had to be on a postcard before it would go out, and it was 60. 60 pairs of eyes had to approve a postcard that had like 3 lines of text on it, because everybody wanted to make sure it was conforming and it was doing what it needed to do, and it was all that. I went to IDEO, and we had a big client, and they asked me to write a deck for them, and I did what a writer does, which is you ask for guidelines. What's the brand voice? How do you speak to your people? And they looked at me and they said, your voice is our voice. That's why we hired you. So they wanted me not to fit in to what they did. They wanted me to help them stand out. And that degree of trust and confidence in the people that they hired changed the way I work. I worked 10 times harder when I knew when I had the freedom to really show up as myself as opposed to the other. And I think, that you brought up something interesting, which is there is all these stats about people that don't want to work, or the quiet quitting, or the quick quitting, or the very fact that we're coming up with new names for this every week is telling. But what complements that at the same time is that people are increasingly seeking out and starved for purpose, for meaning in their life. That hasn't gone away. What has changed is the realization that the work that they're doing isn't serving that purpose. And so I think, at least from my point of view, finding work or turning work into something that allows people for it to overlap with their purpose. And it doesn't mean we're not all going out to build houses for Homes for Humanities, but there are different levels of awareness and connection and meaning that can happen in any job that make it feel like you're doing good work and you have a purpose. Yeah. We did a conference for a group of administrative assistants, and these were people that had been in their industry and their job for decades and were great at what they did. And one woman said, when I die, they'll just give my laptop to someone else and they won't miss a beat. And it was heartbreaking to hear how little she felt valued by people that she gave up her weekends and late nights to serve and to do good work for. And I think recognizing people and connecting with them, again, it's the stuff that often is thrown away as nice to haves. But it's not. It's how you get the best out of your people.
And I think that's where we are, is that people are looking for the best, and then bringing all that together, like the movie Soul Food. They said, apart we can't do anything, but together we're a mighty fist. We have power. But that kind of leads me to, the chicken or the egg, what came first? And when you brought up trust in the workplace, I was wondering, does the dollar come first, or does the trust come last? Or does trust come first and the dollar comes last?
From what I've seen, it's when you're starting a business, when you're asking does the dollar come first, it's a scary time. I have a very, very good friend who opened a restaurant. And as we all know, restaurants have razor thin margins. And, it was scary. But she still, to the best of her ability, made sure that her staff, from the servers to the dishwashers to everybody, was treated equitably, was treated with dignity, with fairness, with trust, with openness, that they knew what was going on, and that they knew that they were important to her. And it didn't cost her anything really to do that, other than giving them a fair wage, which I'm always in favor of. Yes. What it cost her was some time, some focus, some patience, but it made a difference because her people were phenomenally loyal to her. And when COVID hit and everything shut down, her entire staff worked both for her, but also on their own time to switch things around, to turn it into a takeout dynamic, to keep it going. And when COVID was over, they came back, and it has built a real loyalty there. And, I think if you're in a business that has such, high failure rates and such turnover and such razor thin, and you can still create camaraderie in that way, you're doing something right. And for her, at least, in her case, it really led to the success of her business. They had delicious food, but what people came back for again and again was the food, but also the environment, the feeling. When leaders lead by example, it seeps out of everything. Everybody is happy. If everybody's happy to be there, you sense it as a client, as a customer. You know that these are people that believe in what they're saying, that they're not just trying to upsell you, that you can trust them. And, it has an impact.
Yeah. And I love how in the book you really get into play. In business, we think of play as this is not checkers, this is chess, those kind of things. But you're saying be playful. How are you truly defining play within a workplace and still be taken seriously?
Well, in the book, there's two major lenses that the book is addressing. The first is about sort of isolated moments, team building moments, meetings, or annual things where you're bringing people together for a purpose. Mm-hmm. And in that case, I really advocate using play and creativity as a way to lower people's guard, to help them connect with each other, to see each other. When in those environments, often people fall back on how they like to spend their own free time. So they'll lean into competition or, cooking classes or something like that. The problem is that those things don't serve to bring people together in the way that they think. Competition inherently divides people. It pits them against each other. Most people show off and most people lose. So it's not a great mindset to put people in if you want them to lower their guard and open up to each other. So using play and creativity is a way to take some of the edge off, to let them know that this isn't life or death. It's playful. It's about thinking differently. There's nothing at stake here. You don't have to worry about your reputation. But at the same time, it engages people and it allows them to really think in different ways. So that's one of the ways that I think about play. In the other sense, in terms of the day-to-day and just what it looks like in the office or in the business or in the whatever, it's more about the sort of subtle signals that you bring. It doesn't mean everybody needs to stop and have, a basketball break every 25 minutes. It just means adding some joy to the day, making space for people to connect, making space for people to have color and vibrancy in their lives. Joy can infuse itself into all sorts of different atmospheres, but it has to be intentional and welcomed and deliberate. And if you, as a leader, can signal that to your people, that it is important that they are happy, that you're laughing together and not just sweating together. It makes a huge difference. I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I totally agree. I've always been like that. I believe a great smile and to embrace the moment. And I think what can help with that is to kind of stay in a state of gratitude. And it really helps with happiness. Sometimes people say, happiness is associated with what's happening at that moment. But I like to say joy, because joy is something that we just have in our bodies, and we're just joyful to be here because it could be different. So you're here. So let's be joyful. And I know that people a lot of times in business with a client or in the workplace have a problem or kind of go back into a bubble because of criticism, and how we take criticism within the workplace, or just from a client that says, don't do that no more. I don't like what you did. How does your book talk a little bit about that?
It does. I mean, it is. There are people that are that function in a way where they are designed to wound people. They're designed to attack. That's how they get their sense of value. That's how they get their sense of dominance. And those people are always going to be around us. Mm-hmm. I think, in the same way that you said you can focus on gratitude, I think the idea is to focus when somebody lashes out, is to figure out how you want to respond. It's that sort of old adage that you can't control them, you can only control yourself. Mm-hmm. So, I think one of the things that I've found is when I find myself in disagreement with someone else, that arguing with someone, if you're trying to win the argument, you've failed. Because at the best of cases, they're going to leave angry and hurt. But if you're trying to win the person over and convince them to join your side, it's a different type of argument. It's a different type of mood and conversation, especially if you're open to being won over yourself. If you treat your opponent, in this case, however you want to phrase it, or the person you're talking to, with the respect to say, you might be right, I might be right. Let's actually try to understand where we're coming from. And why we're fighting about this. Is this really what we're fighting about? What's at the heart of this? And I think, our current political discourse, our culture, all of that has eviscerated the possibility of comfortably entertaining dialogue between people, because everybody is so furious, and there's just anything that someone else says that people take disagreement as an attack. I think it comes from a place of immense pain and frustration and injustice that has gone on for far too long. And it's about time that it changes. But for us to get past that moment of reckoning to a moment of growth, and it's a necessary process, but to move forward from that awareness of other people's perspectives and not just my own, but to a point where we can all add our own insights in a way that it builds a useful type of friction. We're not all going to agree always, and I don't think we should. I think there should be some friction. You were talking about, a good marriage. A good marriage is not necessarily something that nobody ever challenges the other one on or pushes them. Hopefully you're growing your whole life. And I think our culture is in desperate, desperate need of that understanding of how to listen to why the other side is so angry, and to figure out how to explain to them why we are so angry in a way that both sides can listen and say, how about we move forward in something positive instead of just hammering down how angry we are.
Yeah, let's go out in the golf course. Let's play some pickleball. But but that human connection is real, having that human connection. I love what you said, don't try to win the argument, win the person over. And really the love that you give someone else is what you give to yourself. I believe that. Thank you, Barbara Streisand. I believe that so much. But I really believe in those type of things. But right now we're dealing with, our president. Some define him as a bully. And I believe that that attitude transcends within our own community, our society, our country, with where others feel as though they have license to do the same. And it doesn't always work for anyone. I don't believe bullying somebody works well for anything to get to a positive goal. But I also wanted to just talk a little bit about the competitive edge, because that is a way of management. People sometimes like to put employees against each other, and they'll compete for the position. I believe Barry Gordy talked about that in his documentary. That was the management style when Motown was basically just coming up, where music writers would write music, and then someone had to compete and write a better song, and it worked. Motown is legendary. But I was wondering, now we're competing with technology, with AI, with all of these things that are happening in our world. Some people are losing their jobs. But, that compassionate, that space, I love the word space. I'm going to give you space. I'm going to, listen to you for once. Be compassionate, sensitive. AI might not, and I don't think it does, accomplish that. So, what do you say as it relates to technology and to still feel safe with that sensitivity that you're looking for from a client or the workplace?
Yeah. Very quickly, I'd like to just, your Barry Gordy analogy. I think, I certainly encounter people that still thrive on competition, that love it, that love leading with competition. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And if that suits you, then more power to you. I do think there's a subtle difference between a team that competes against each other and a team that competes with each other, in that one is trying to one only succeeds if the others fail, and the other uses the competition as a way to elevate your own game. It was a coach that I had in track and field at one point. Somebody slowed down to help somebody else not feel alone, and he let them have it. Just said, no, the best thing you can do for someone else is to run faster so they keep up with you. And if that's the sort of competition that resonates, yes, push people, but don't push them off a cliff.
Yeah, definitely. This is my final question. What is the biggest takeaway that you want your readers to get from the book, Safe Danger?
I think the biggest thing I'm really hoping is that people really take home the idea that change is possible. I think to a great degree, many of us are living someone else's life. We're following the expectations we inherited. We're following the blueprints of other successful businesses. We're doing, we're in other people's footsteps. And I think to some degree that's important. We certainly want to learn from the best. But at the same time, we want other people to learn from us too. And so I think finding the ability to cherish what makes us us is important. So I hope that people will realize that, I hope that the book gives people tools to pay attention to the moments where they hold themselves back, the thoughts that they think aren't worth sharing, or the comments or the ideas that they're not feeling courageous enough to step into. I hope that the book helps them sort of rethink their relationship with risk and safety so they can better gauge their comfort zones and see what's holding them prisoner as opposed to holding them safe. I hope it helps them rethink their relationship with work and the business so that they're able to make it even more rewarding and purposeful. And finally, I think I really hope it helps them rethink their relationship with the people around them so that they can get some tools to really accelerate trust and deepen connection, because that's the thing that makes life valuable and special.
I love this. I love everything you just said. Now, Ben, how do we get the book? I know that it's recently released, but how do we get it?
Well, the book is available on Amazon. That's the easiest way, but it's also available through all sorts of wonderful independent bookstores. That's always my preference, is to support the indies. And if you're looking for specific ones, you can go to my website, which is called Make Believe Works. And we've got lots of links there that will show you what's local for you and find the bookstore near you.
All right. Ben Swire, the wonderful book, Safe Danger, An Unexpected Method for Sparking Connection, Finding Purpose, and Inspiring Innovation. Thank you, Ben, so much for being on Enterprising People.
Thank you so much for having me, Kimberly. This was just delightful.
Oh, I just love you. I can't wait to meet you. Okay. Thank you. I'm waiting for the next book now. So thank you so much, Ben. Again, I want to thank you all for tuning in to Enterprising People 702 right here on YouTube. So if you enjoyed today's show, please click subscribe and subscribe. It's free. And again, we're coming from fabulous Las Vegas. We want to thank our sponsor, SilverStateSmiles.com, best dentist in the whole world. So be sure to go on there. 9 different locations right here in Las Vegas, Nevada. So again, I want to thank you and you too for being Enterprising People.